Hello and welcome to this installment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at a carpet set for the Austin Healey BN4 and BT7 models. Now, whereas this covers the whole range of the BN4s, which is the 4-seater 106, it only covers some of the BT7 models, which was effectively the 3000 Mark 1 and Mark 2 4-seater versions. So for the BT7 models, they had two versions of gearboxes. They had the side shift on the early cars as per the BN4, and then they shifted to a center change gearbox where the gearbox channel is completely different and it had a gear stick right in the middle of it. The chassis number changeover was around 15,000, I think towards the end of the 15,000 range, just FYI. But just to show you in the book here, you can see here the commonly seen side shift gearbox where the gear stick protrudes out on the left hand side of the gearbox tunnel. That was very common for a lot of the earlier Healey models. Then in the 3000s they started shifting it to the center section. As you can see, it's right in the center of the gearbox there. This BJ8 shows it very nicely there, although it's got the console on top of it. You can see it's dead center there, so worth bearing that in mind. BN4s were always like this, whereas the BT7s, the early ones, were like this. The later ones completely changed to that center change gearbox style. Let's dive on in. So this particular carpet set has got it has been done in dark blue Karvel. Karvel was the original material used by Healey for a lot of their cars. Not all of them, I think. Some of our records show they shifted to wool for the later cars, but for the large majority of them it was Karvel. Karvel's a very unique material because it's got this subtle rib in the pile of the actual carpet. You can see it there going from left to right effectively. It's also got a Hessian backing on it as so. Karvel's only available in a few colours. You've got black, you've got dark blue like this, then you've got red and grey. Whereas say wool, which is our premium carpet, there are a lot more colours and shades. So we do tend to get a lot of people ordering wool, not just for the colour allowances, but also it is a very premium automotive carpet material. So some people prefer that. But anyone looking to go for kind of OEM spec on their car, then Karvel is correct. We can also offer nylon for those really working to a budget, but we don't tend to recommend it, even though it's the most premium automotive nylon carpet available on the market. It still doesn't really touch Karvel or wool in terms of quality, durability and finish, so just bear that in mind. We realise some people have to work to tighter budgets, and this is why we offer it. It's also nice for the boot trunk areas of cars sometimes if you want to go that direction where it doesn't get the wear and tear that the main cockpit cabin does. But this is the carpet set in dark blue Karvel. Now it's been edged in dark blue Leathercloth. Leathercloth being the recommended and the original material for edging carpets in, not vinyl like a lot of other suppliers do out there. Please do see our blog handbook post and video based on that, because there is a subtle but noticeable difference between edging in carpet versus Leathercloth. And we like to go down to the finer details of these sorts of things and make sure it all looks correct. So these have been done in Leathercloth, which is what we only edge our carpets in. It's worth noting we can also offer for the Healeys, for example, dark blue, which is this, or we've also got Austin Healey blue, which is still a dark shade of blue, but it's a bit lighter, a bit more vibrant. Both are original for the Healeys, depending on who you ask and what era the car was and what Healey were feeling like on that day. So it's just one of those subtle differences that we tend to do with our carpet kits, where we want to try and make sure that things tie in nicely with the interior. So if the rest of your interior trim, like the trim panels and the seats, have been done in AH blue, then we will edge your carpets in AH blue. So there's that subtle toning between the carpets and the seats and the panels. Whereas if they're in dark blue, obviously we do them in dark blue. If you're not buying any other parts at this stage, then the choice is yours effectively, and we'll always send samples to get your approval on that. But again, it's just these little details we go down to. It's worth noting as well that we edge our carpets either to original specification or with a bit of common sense in mind. Now, a lot of Healeys left the factory with very minimal or no binding on the edges of the carpets, and this will be almost certainly done from a cost-saving perspective at their point, but also it gives them a bit of flexibility. They could mass cut carpets to a certain size, and then they could trim them back to fit the individual cars. Such was the era of manufacturing back there, where things weren't particularly consistent. But obviously these days things have changed massively. We have obviously spent years tailoring our patterns to make sure that they are most suited for restorations. And so what we tend to do is edge using common sense. So the general principle on it is not all the edges are bound, but it's the edges that are on show when it's in the car are. So for example, the front floor carpets, rear floor carpets are edged all the way around, but you'll see that the gearbox carpet and the sill carpets aren't edged in many places. The sort of outside edges aren't edged. And the reason for that is because they will be tucked underneath the adjacent bound edge of the carpet next to it, or the adjacent panel in the case of the sill there. So no raw edges on show. And that's a general principle that you take throughout the car. Effectively, there should be no raw edges on show when everything is said and done, because a lot of them get tucked under the way underneath the adjacent edges. It's also worth noting that that's how we've designed our carpets. So for example, this gearbox carpet here is wider than it needs to be from left to right, because the idea is that you actually fit it and tuck it underneath the adjacent floors so that there's nice coverage of the floor. And that allows for, should we say, the idiosyncrasies of the poor manufacturing consistencies back in the day. So we've made our kits basically flexible to allow for, should we say, subtle changes in the original manufacturing sizes and whatnot. And this is why we are the chosen supplier for so many Healey specialist restoration companies all over the globe. Just read our handbook blog area and see our testimonials area to back that up. But this particular carpet set, if we start at the front, we can go through the details of it. You've got parcel tray. So on the passenger side, underneath the dash, you had a parcel tray. You can just about make it out there. We include the carpet for the parcel tray as standard in our carpet sets, but we don't include the vinyl. We can supply that as well if you want, but the general rule being that we wanted to make sure that everything that is carpeted in the main cabin matches. So therefore, we have supplied a carpeted piece for the parcel tray there. You've then got the toe boards, left and right, and obviously the archway of the gearbox there. So they're right up underneath the dash there. This is obviously the piece that kind of, that's the toe board there, and then that bends round and follows the curvature of the gearbox there. That's obviously the archway piece in the middle there. Then moving back down the center of the car, you've obviously got the main gearbox carpet here, which is two pieces sewn together. You have the opening there for obviously the gear shift, and then you have the opening here, which is where the handbrake safety brake goes, and we supply a piece of loose material for retrimming the bodywork that is exposed by that handbrake section of the car, which wasn't always original to have it in the material, but we supply it as standard in case you wanted to do that. Let's just see if there's any images showing. There you are, that little section there. So that's that material piece there. Then working back towards the back of the car, you've effectively got the lower bulkhead at the back of the car, which raises up onto the rear shelf area. Then this is the rear shelf area around where the kind of seat pans go. I'm sure we have a half decent image of that. Yeah, perfect. If I just take this book back here. So this piece here is effectively the piece that sits there and kind of bends up ever so slightly. And then this piece here with the cutaways is obviously where the rear seat base elements sit there. You've then got on the left and right wheel arch carpets, which depending on the exact model of your car, both between BN4 and BT7, but also within those ranges, you may or may not require those. The early BN4s had vinyl that covered them. Later ones had carpet. Obviously the BT7s had a big quarter panel there as well, which often covered most of the bodywork there. But again, we include them as standard as part of our carpet set, so you may or may not require those dependent on it. You've obviously got the sill carpets that go down the door sills, the door openers, effectively the other side of here, just down there. I think you're going to get a better image of that. And like I say, they haven't been edged, but they no raw edges on show, because it gets tucked underneath the front and rear full carpets. Moving back to the gearbox there, you get a loose piece of vinyl here, which is effectively where the front of this gearbox carpet butts up to this section here. You basically had a bit of an archway, and that gets trimmed in a piece of vinyl to kind of bridge that gap effectively. So we include that vinyl as standard. And then obviously you've got the main floor carpet, so you have a pair of front floors. We put the Austin rubber heel pad on both sides unless instructed otherwise, and then you've got the rear floor carpets there, right and left, which obviously have the cutaways for the seat runner elements mounting to the floor, going through them. So that's effectively the carpet set there. It's worth noting that Karvel, because of its Hessian backing, can be quite rigid, especially for the gearbox tunnel there. So we do tend to recommend using a bit of gentle heat to soften it up. And that will help with the fitment in the car, but it's quite a tough and rigid material to work with, especially when you compare it to a wall carpet, which has a rubber backing to it, which is lovely and flexible. So yeah, unfortunately it's just one of the natures of the beast of Karvel that you have to battle with, so just keep that in mind as well. But yeah, effectively that is the carpet set for all the BN4 models and the early BT7 models. I hope you found that useful. Please remember to like, subscribe and share with other classic car enthusiasts. Of course, send me any questions or inquiries you might have via the links below to our website. I look forward to hearing from you, and please tune in next time.